Welcome to Mind Shield. We protect the mind and pursue the truth. Let's get started.
All right, today we're diving into something that sounds like it's straight out of a spy movie, sending messages that people can't actually hear, but their brains might pick up on anyway. We're going to dig into a very specific US patent that claims it can do exactly that. So here's the big question, right? Is it even possible for a message that you're not aware of hearing to actually change what you think or do? That's really at the heart of what we're talking about today. We're going to unpack this patent and try to separate what's scientifically possible from what's, well, just speculation. And look, before you write this all off as some kind of fantasy, check this out. This quote is from a U.S. Army glossary from 2004. So the basic idea of delivering sound directly into someone's head using some pretty unconventional methods has definitely been on the radar in official circles for a while. Okay, so that brings us to the main event, this patent from 1992, officially called the Silent Subliminal Presentation System. The claims it makes are pretty wild. And to really understand them, we need to look at it from two totally different angles, the physics of sound and the psychology of the mind. So here's the core idea in a nutshell. The patent lays out a system for taking information, say a spoken message, and piggybacking it onto a sound wave that you can't hear. We're talking either ultrasonic, which is way too high-pitched for our ears, or infrasonic, which is too low. The theory is that this signal reaches a person and their subconscious mind just decodes it. Now, that whole part about the subconscious decoding things, that's a huge claim, and we are definitely going to get to that. But first, let's talk about the delivery method itself. Is it even possible, physically, to send a sound signal on a carrier wave that's totally unaudible? Well, surprisingly, the answer is yeah. In fact, this kind of tech is already out there. It's called a parametric speaker. You might have seen one in a museum exhibit or a fancy retail store. It's pretty cool. It creates this incredibly tight beam of sound, almost like a laser pointer. If you're standing in the beam, you hear it perfectly clear. But take one step to the side and nothing. And this is basically how it works. You generate this super high-frequency sound wave that you can't hear. That's your delivery truck. Then you load your audible message onto it. The whole package travels through the air, and when it hits a target, like a wall or even a person's head, the properties of the air itself make the original audio pop back into existence. It's a really clever bit of physics. So the takeaway here is that the physics is totally real. The fundamental principle of transmitting information this way is sound. You absolutely can hide one signal inside another. But that brings us to the much, much trickier part. And for that, I'm going to hand things over. Thanks. Yeah, so sending the signal, that's one thing. But the patent's real claim is way bigger, that this inaudible signal can be decoded by the subconscious and actually influence you. This is where we step out of the world of physics and into psychology. And let me tell you, the evidence gets a whole lot murkier. This really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? The patent seems to imply you can just flip a switch and remote control someone's brain. But does actual scientific research back that up? This idea that there's some kind of subliminal command center just waiting for an external signal? And when you put the two side by side, you see this massive, massive gap. On one side, you've got this incredible claim of direct mind control. But on the other, you have decades of actual research that shows any subliminal effect is usually tiny, it's temporary, and it really depends on what the person was already thinking or feeling. And yeah, the research is pretty firm on a few things. Subliminal messages can't force you to do something that goes against your core values or beliefs. The real concern, if there is one, isn't about some instant mind control command. It's more about the possibility of slow, long-term shifts in attitude after being exposed to something over and over. And here's the kicker. A lot of the time, if you even suspect someone's trying to influence you this way, the effect just goes away. This chart really puts it into perspective. On one hand, you have the kind of absolute control this patent hints at, way up here. But then you look at what scientists have actually been able to measure in the lab, and it's just a tiny fraction of that. It's the difference between a sci-fi mind control ray and, a slightly more effective pop-up ad. Exactly. So we've got a delivery method that's plausible, but an effect that's questionable, to say the least. But just for a second, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say someone was using a device like this. How would you even know? What's in the investigator's toolkit for finding this so-called ghost signal? Well, it turns out it would leave clues.
fingerprints, if you will. First, you could just look for the high-frequency carrier wave itself. Your ears can't hear it, but special microphones definitely can. Second, you'd look for something called intermodulation products. It's like a weird echo or distortion that gets created when that high-frequency sound hits a normal microphone. It's a dead giveaway. And finally, you have to remember, this is all based on sound. It needs a way to get from the device to you.
So the big takeaway here is, even though it's called silent technology, it's not some kind of magic. It's not invisible. It has a physical signature. Sure, you might need special gear to find it, but at the end of the day, it has to play by the rules of physics, and that means it can be found. And this is how you'd actually put a claim like this to the test, scientifically. You'd scan the area for the signal, you'd run controlled experiments where nobody knows who's being exposed and who isn't, and then you'd have to find a direct, repeatable link between being exposed and some kind of effect. If you can't do that, then any claim is really just a story. And that scientific rigor is so important because it leads us right to our final and probably most critical point, the ethics of all this. I mean, talking about this kind of technology obviously brings up some very valid fears about how it could be abused. You know, in the real world of science, you can't just zap someone with a beam to see what happens. Any study that involves people, especially with something this sensitive, has to clear an incredibly high ethical bar. Researchers have to get their plans approved by an ethics board, and they have to get detailed, informed consent from everyone involved. And that's really the key difference we have to grasp here. A patent is just an idea on paper. It's a claim. It doesn't need proof that it actually works or that it's safe. Real science, though, that's a whole different ballgame. It demands solid proof, it has to be reviewed by other experts, and it absolutely requires strict ethical rules. So a patent shows someone is interested in an idea, but it's not proof that the idea works or is being used. These kinds of concerns are so real, in fact, that they've actually sparked a whole new field of law called neurorights. This is basically an effort to create rules that protect your mind, your thoughts, your privacy, your free will from being messed with by new technologies. It's a direct answer to the fears that things like this silent subliminal patents stir up. So we'll leave you with this thought. This patent is from 1992. It's pretty old, but the questions it raises, they have never been more urgent. As we get better and better at interacting directly with the human brain, we have to figure out who gets to write the rules. The real challenge is making sure that as this technology grows, our laws and ethics grow right alongside it to protect our most basic human rights. Thanks for tuning in.